Good afternoon and welcome to Ray of Life Radio. Today we are live in studio with Chris Queen, a local author. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm great. It's a pleasure to be here, Adam.
Super. I'm glad you could make it. We're going to be starting off today talking about his book, and the title's kind of a tongue twister for me. Every time I try to say it, it's kind of a tongue twister. So I'm going to let you do that. But first, I just want to let everybody know you can call in to join the conversation today at 678-212-0310. Or if you're watching us live online through YouTube, you can actually email us at rayofliferadio@gmail.com or at Twitter. Or at Ray of Life Radio on Twitter.com. Sorry about that. And Facebook's kind of giving us some hiccups today, but it's Ray of Life Radio, Facebook.com/Ray of Life Radio. We would love for you to join the conversation any way you can. So, Chris, tell me a little bit about your book. Rattle that title off for me first.
Okay, the title is Football, Faith, and Flannery O'Connor, A Love Letter to the South.
I love that.
Thanks.
I love that. And the way the book's broken down, it's broken down in different categories as you go through, right?
Right.
Tell me a little bit.
Basically, the book started as a challenge from an editor friend of mine who wanted me to write a book about the culture of the South and make it a travel log, which I thought, I racked my brain for a couple of months trying to figure out how to do that.
Right.
So I got to thinking about what I know best about traveling in the South, and that's my family goes to Disney World at least once a year. And so I realized that I could take different cities along that trip.
Oh, nice.
And kind of hang different elements of Southern culture. And I batched it up a little bit so that I can include some other things like Athens and things like that. So
of course.
Start actually about an hour north of Covington at a little church that has a neon cross that shines this bright green neon that says Jesus Saves. And the original title we'd come up with before the editors and the publishers kind of got involved was Neon Crosses and Magic Kingdoms, because we were talking about how the neon cross was not something that you would notice in the daytime,
right? When
it's daylight out there, but when it was dark and that neon cross was shining, you couldn't help but notice the words Jesus Saves.
Right.
So
we've driven past that church many times, going up to Commerce to go up to the mountains in North Carolina, and something I found interesting about that particular chapter. You've titled it "The Christ-Haunted South."
Right.
And you talk about that ride from Commerce down to Athens and the number of churches that you pass down that road.
Right.
And I just found that interesting. And I think you also introduced a favorite author of you through there as well.
Right, Flannery O'Connor. She's actually the one who came up with the term Christ-haunted. She said that the South isn't necessarily Christ-centered, but it's Christ-haunted. And of course, the idea behind that is that even people who don't follow Jesus know a little bit about him, and he kind of peeks his head into a lot of things around this part of the country.
Right. I think recent statistics that we found out is that 80% of Newton County residents don't identify with a church home. Is that correct?
That's right.
So yes, but if you ask them, a lot of them probably know some stories from the Bible or some things that they've been exposed to over their life.
Exactly.
Whether it's accurate or not remains to be seen.
That's true.
But yeah, I liked that term, Christ-haunted, because we do try to remain Christ-centered in a lot that we do.
Right.
But I found that very interesting. I did notice the last chapter, though, was about Disney.
No, of course.
And I know that you've got this passion for Disney.
Absolutely.
Maybe we can hashtag them on the final version and we get free tickets or something.
There we go.
Hint, hint, hashtag Disney. But, I think it's interesting the way you've just sort of walked through the South.
Right.
Because even in the state of Georgia, we go through multiple environments.
Exactly.
We do go through the very strict Bible church on every corner to the rural farmland, where they may not have churches ever so often, but the churches they do have are vibrant and attended by hardworking Americans that really toil for a living.
That's true.
But yeah, tell me a little bit more. Identify some areas in there that you went through.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you a little bit, particularly here in Covington.
Okay.
The one the aspect of the culture that I kind of hung on Covington was the Hollywood South.
Okay.
Because I mean, let's face it, Hollywood has been a presence here in Covington for a long time, actually back to the 50s.
Wow.
Yeah, the first movie that filmed in Covington was a movie called A Man Called Peter.
That's right. I
actually bought it on DVD. I haven't watched it yet, but I bought it on DVD, and it filmed partially here in Covington, and all the way through it. I actually relay my little brush with Hollywood fame. My day as an extra on In the Heat of the Night back when I was in high school, which was kind of pretty much killed any TV stardom ideas that I had for myself. But it was a fun experience, and I talk about what the film and TV industry means to the South, and just how much we really benefit from it, and how much they benefit from being able to use real locations to film, honest things. I also look a little bit at things like the horrible Southern accents that you hear in the movies, and why they can't, as much filming as they do in the South, why can't they find better accent speakers and things like that. I have a little fun with that sort of thing. You
have actors that can completely lose a Scottish or British accent, but they cannot properly imitate a Southern accent.
Exactly.
Without it sounding too bad.
I always say there's kind of the two things. There's the old South accent that everybody sounds like Scarlett O'Hara, or the accent where everybody sounds like Forrest Gump, and there's not anything in between. And all you have to do is experience the South to know that there are way more accents than those two.
Oh, definitely, because Georgia is truly a melting pot.
It absolutely is.
After Hurricane Katrina, we had a lot of people move here from New Orleans.
Right.
And Hurricane Katrina affected many other areas besides New Orleans, but we had a lot of people move in here from New Orleans.
Right.
And that brought its own unique accent as well, and Cajun culture into our area, which is really cool.
Right.
But we are a melting pot. You can walk around Covington itself and probably see 5 to 10 different nationalities.
Exactly. It doesn't take long at all.
Doesn't take long. And, the Hollywood of the South, I identify with that. Back during the Heat of the Night days, you remember the character Harriet DeLong?
I sure did.
They used my parents' house on Floyd Street for their house.
That's cool.
So I got to meet some of the actors then, and, I was kind of awestruck back then.
Right.
But, Vampire Diaries being here and everything, it's kind of made it something interesting.
That's true, and we almost take it for granted, I think, sometimes here in Covington, just because we know that sometimes there's going to be delays because of filming, and there are not very many small towns where you will see those orange signs that say "Filming ahead, expect delays." So,
and being able to say, yes, we do have delays. But for the most part, I believe that the community that comes in with the shows has been very instrumental to developing our economy.
Absolutely.
People will notice that there are new shops coming in, new restaurants coming in. Your Pie just opened on the square. And, we have a vision of a square where you can actually come and spend time after 6 o'clock.
That's true. That's true.
Because there was a time where it closed up and there was nothing.
Right.
And we're so glad to have that coming in.
One of the things in that chapter I go on is, I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, when the Dixie Boys World Series was here, the Chamber of Commerce debuted an ad that highlighted Vampire Diaries. It was a little bit of a kitschy, corny kind of ad, intentionally so. It wasn't anything really bad. But a newspaper editor from Alabama just picked on us for that. And he actually tried to compare it to trying to say that Charles Manson's hometown should have tours. It was crazy, and I wrote an article at the time, and then I referenced it in the book, where I pick on the guy for apparently believing in vampires and believing in fictional entities. But whatever. That's how it goes sometimes.
Some people do take it to the extreme.
That's true.
I will have to say I've experienced that. And we still have the people around town who are very awestruck whenever they film here.
Right.
And I guess when you've been around it as much as Covington has, you will have that.
That's true.
You have people coming in from out of town, which brings
out of the country even,
which brings money into our economy.
Yes,
so that's a good thing. But and a little bit about Chris. I know Chris writes as a freelancer for PJ Media. Tell me a little bit about PJ.
All right, it's a. It started out as a little more political website, but it's evolved more into a cultural website.
Good.
There's a section that is devoted strictly to faith, and I actually write a lot. Actually, everything I've written the month of February has been on the faith page.
Wow.
Which is really cool. We do
Cool.
write a lot about culture and faith, and we still keep our finger on the pulse of news and politics, but it's about life in general, not just about one particular area of
Well,
life.
that's good.
So,
That's good. Now, did you see yourself as a writer when you were younger?
I think in some ways I did,
Okay.
but I never thought of it as something that I would do as, even sort of a secondary career in
actually
addition
get
to
a
my full-time
paycheck?
job. Exactly. I never really thought about that. I wrote for the school newspaper when I was in high school,
Okay.
which was fun.
Yeah.
And I started out at UGA as a journalism major and changed my major quite a few times. But
You aren't the only one that's ever done that. Trust me.
I'm sure.
That's funny. But Chris is also I guess you call him the director of communications at Eastridge Community Church.
Yep.
He's kind of responsible for the presence that Eastridge puts out to the public eye. Does an excellent job at that. I've come to call him a friend and wanted to give him a chance during this first segment to talk about his book. I would definitely recommend Football, Faith, and Flannery O'Connor, A Love Letter to the South.
Got it. You got it.
Yes,
Yay.
all right. I would definitely recommend it. It's available online, Amazon. You can get it for your Kindle device. Is it available for people who like pages?
It is not. It is an ebook only.
Okay,
the cool
good.
thing about Amazon is you can download the Kindle app. If you have a smartphone, you can read it on your phone. If you have a tablet, you can read it on your tablet. So you can really pretty much take it with you wherever you go.
That's fantastic. Well, we're live on WGFS AM 1430, Ray of Life Radio today. If you want to join us in the conversation at 678-212-0310 on Twitter at Ray of Life Radio or our Gmail, rayofliferadio@gmail.com. We are sponsored by Caldwell and Cowan Funeral Home. I want to thank them for the great work they do in the community and for sponsoring our show. We're going to go back to the music and then we'll come back for our second segment shortly.
worthy of all praise. Mighty God, wonderful counselor, blessed be your sovereign name. Yes, you are just, you are gracious, you are majestic in all your ways. Giver of gladness, maker of joy, sorrow and mourning must flee away. Yeah. I will praise you, O Lord, for you're my strength and my song. With joy I draw the living water from the wells of salvation, and I will sing to you, Lord, for your great and glorious power shall be magnified and known among all of the nations. You are good, you are holy, you are worthy of all praise. Mighty God, wonderful counselor, blessed be.
And that's one of the things that I want us to talk about for a few minutes. I know that Chris said before we started today that we're nearing the 5th anniversary of, was it your grandmother's death?
Right.
And over the years, have y'all struggled with remembering her in a way that was...
I don't think so. I think one of our biggest struggles with her was trying to remember the years when she was healthier.
Okay.
And the years where she was more vibrant and
Right.
more, able to move around
Okay.
and carry on a conversation and not dwell on the last few months of her life,
Okay.
which were a lot more difficult.
Okay.
But
That's tough when you have to watch somebody go from this vibrant person that you've known probably all of your life
right.
to someone who is medically feeble,
Right.
physically feeble.
Right.
And in a lot of instances, a lot of people would just like to ignore even being around them during those last couple of months.
Right.
But those times can actually play well into your grief process.
I think so too.
You know?
I think
It allows you to handle unfinished business.
Right.
And unfinished business are things that can really cause us to suffer after the fact.
Right.
If we don't get those things settled.
that's true.
Remembrance, how do we remember a loved one, though? That's a tough question. Everybody does it different. Have y'all done anything in particular?
My mom and her sisters, the last few Mother's Days,
Okay.
will get together on the phone at the same time because one lives in Washington State, the other one lives up in Northwest Georgia, but they'll get on the phone at the same time.
Good.
And release a balloon together.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's just a really cool way to remember. And
Nice.
my nieces and my sister and brother and I get involved in that as well. And it's just a
Right.
really special moment.
That's good.
To be able to do that.
That's good. And even though they're separated by distance,
Right.
they're able to pull together. You don't have to be sitting side by side like we are
Exactly,
here.
exactly.
You can actually do that distance and still be connected with your loved ones.
Right.
And you're still maintaining a connection to that loved one that's gone.
And it's become a special tradition too.
That's good.
That's really
That's
cool
good.
thing about it.
That's an important thing, is maintaining that tradition, maintaining that connection.
Right.
We have some people that on the birthday of the person that has been deceased, they will actually buy something that they would have bought for their loved one
That's cool.
and
That's
give
really
it away.
neat.
I
never thought about that. That's really
but
cool.
that way they're keeping their loved one in their memory,
Right.
and they're blessing someone else.
Right.
And I find that a fantastic way to just minister.
That is neat. That's
you know?
really cool.
Because if somebody asks you, why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Then that opens up a conversation where you can share about the life that was lived that you're celebrating.
Right.
And that's amazing. Other things we've had, oh goodness, up at the cemetery, Lawnwood on the access road, we have had full-blown parties on different anniversary dates.
Wow.
Balloon releases are very popular, like you spoke of. We've had dove releases. We've had paper lantern releases.
Oh, I like that.
Depending on the wind, that can be kind of tricky. Same way with
Right.
balloons, though. It becomes a challenge if you release this balloon or this paper lantern, and it gets stuck in a tree, and you have children asking, "But she's not going to get my
see it,
present."
right.
So those are things that we just have to, hope and pray through,
Right.
and communicate with them. But see, we're not only doing this remembrance for ourselves. We're doing it for those around us, especially future generations.
Right.
Because with your grandmother's death 5 years ago, anyone that's born after her death didn't know her.
Right.
And by remembering her and telling her story, we pass along that heritage.
That's true.
We keep that legacy in our family.
That's true.
And that's a good thing. You said earlier when we were talking about doing some genealogical research, and my wife is very big into genealogy and tracking things back and working
Right.
through that puzzle. But it helps to have those stories, that were passed down.
That's true.
A lot of people don't even think about it, but from the beginning, the Bible was originally spoken word.
Exactly.
It was passed from generation to generation by people who kept it in their minds. And then it eventually got to where it was written down on scroll and everything,
Right.
so that it wasn't forgotten. So the spoken word, being able to remember someone that way is a blessing for
It
the
really
entire
is.
family.
It is.
Other ways of remembering, this is kind of a twist on the first one, but remember your loved one on a special day by buying something they would have given you.
Huh. Okay.
My wife on her birthday, it can be sad to say, well, my mom's not here to give me a gift or
Right.
to celebrate with me. So you celebrate in the same way you would if they were there.
Right.
And you buy yourself something special, and this is from mom
Right.
or this is from dad.
With my grandmother, one of her most incredible skills was baking.
Oh,
and
wow.
so I can't eat a pound cake without thinking about her.
Oh, I bet.
And one of the memories I have of spending the weekends with my grandparents when I was young was we would have graham crackers and peanut butter. So that's another thing that kind of triggers that memory of her
Yeah.
whenever I eat graham crackers and peanut
Yeah.
butter. It's something simple,
Yeah.
but it really it helps those really fun special memories flood back.
That's cool. One thing I want to ask, and it's for those out there who may have been embroiled in grief very heavily right now, or recently. You're 5 years along.
Right.
I'm sure it's been a journey, but do you feel like you've made progress in learning how to properly deal with her grief?
Absolutely.
Her death? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it wasn't easy at first. I mean, I actually delivered the funeral.
Oh wow.
And that was
that can be tough.
It was a challenge, because at the time I was not as well versed in public speaking as I am now, so that was another challenge that went along with it. But I had a pastor that helped me.
Yes.
But that I think helped me get to a certain point, just
Good.
being the one to speak.
Oh wow.
And just the things that remind me of my grandmother.
Yeah.
Help. They're warm and fond. They don't make me feel sad.
Yeah. And I ask him that question so that those out there know that there is a future. You don't have to give up hope
Right.
in your future because you've lost a loved one.
Exactly.
It makes your future challenging. You bear the scars of your grief
Right.
through your future, but it is something that you will get through and keep going.
Exactly.
It's not something that we want to anchor you down into the present and suffer through depression or other physical illness that can be caused by this. We want you to be able to learn how to reframe and say, okay, this could make me really sad, but every time I think of this story, it makes me laugh.
Exactly.
And choosing mentally which story to go with.
Right.
And you learn to stop focusing on those 2 or 3 months when they weren't doing well, or the day you got the phone call that they had died,
Right.
and you start focusing on that time when they accidentally tripped over something in the yard, or that time they baked a pound cake and it tasted like it had salt in it. Stuff like that. And it's time that you can enjoy. Well, we are live on the air, 14:30 a.m., Covington, Georgia, WGFS, Ray of Life Radio, sponsored by Caldwell and Cowan Funeral Home. Again, if you want to join in the conversation, you can call us at 678-212-0310. You can connect with us on Twitter at Ray of Life Radio, or through our email, rayofliferadio@gmail.com. Facebook's given us trouble today, but if you're able to get something to us, it's facebook.com/rayofliferadio. We're going to go back to the music, and then we're going to come back for another segment shortly.
In the quiet, in the stillness, I know that you are God. In the secret of your presence, I know there I am restored. And when you call, I won't refuse. Each new day again, I'll choose.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Ray of Life Radio. We're in studio today with Chris Queen, Director of Communication from Eastridge Community Church, and also a local author who has written a book called Football, Faith, and Flannery O'Connor, A Love Letter to the South. And anybody who is interested in Southern culture in any way would appreciate this book because it kind of walks you from an hour north of Covington all the way down to, I believe, Disney World.
Right, Disney World.
So it's kind of like a journey through the South, and very interesting, very poetic in nature as well, as he kind of breaks us down, or breaks the South down into all its different pieces. Very interesting. But we're continuing our conversation on remembrance, and I think it's important for us to talk about different ways to remember. And earlier we were talking about birthdays and anniversaries and balloon releases and stuff like that. But what if you've got something that you want to keep of a loved one's?
Right.
What if you've got that cherished memento that you really want to protect and save?
Right.
How do you do that? Scrapbooking is one way. If you've got photos, you can create nice pages with the photos. I would definitely recommend, though, if you've got actual photos, to have them scanned by somebody who can put them in a digital file for you, because we all know that photos age and they get unrecognizable in some aspects. But if you're scrapbooking, scrapbook with those duplicates. That way you can create your pages. My wife loves doing that. But what about that favorite shirt or something like that?
Right.
What are some ways that you can think of?
My brother-in-law's grandfather passed away not terribly long ago, just a few months ago.
Okay.
And they took some of his old shirts and made them into pillows for the grandchildren. And that was a really cool, a cool way to remember him by.
Yeah.
That was really neat.
That is awesome to be able to do that. I've heard of quilts being made out of parts of the clothing. I've even heard of widows simply leaving their husband's last worn shirt hanging in the bathroom or hanging on the closet door, because the smell, it reminded them of them, and they're afraid if they wash it, they'll lose that smell.
Right.
Another way is there's actually a lady in Social Circle who will take the cloth that you give her and create a teddy bear.
Oh, that's cool.
A specially designed teddy bear just for you.
That's really cool.
Made out of your loved one's clothing or fabric that is special. We've given her some fabric to make one for our daughters that remind them of their grandmother. And she does great work. I don't know how she does it to create these, I would say, professional quality teddy bears that are made with your loved one's clothing. To the extent where if your loved one wore khakis and a flannel shirt all the time, the bear has khakis and a flannel shirt made out of that same material.
That is really neat.
And it's really interesting because that's something that, again, you can keep it. When you see it, it reminds you of the loved one. If you need a special connection to the loved one at a moment, you hug it.
Right.
And if somebody asks about it, it starts that conversation, which is healthy.
That's true.
To remember that loved one. Another thing that some people can do, if you've got like an old worn-out pocket knife or some old coins or something like that, put them in a safe. That way, if there's a fire or something, they're not damaged. And that way they're not stolen either if your house is broken into. Nowadays, the safes are so small, people just carry them off. But, lock it away or put it in a safety deposit box if you need to. But if it's something that you want to keep out where you can see it, that proposes a different challenge.
Right.
But if you go to some local craft stores, they've got shadow boxes. And you can do amazing things with shadow boxes and be able to create nice memories of your loved one. Now, I'm not talking about creating a shrine.
Right.
There's two different things there, where one is kind of an overboard thing, and then you've got your others where it's just a simple reminder.
Right.
But one thing that I really want to encourage people on is you've got to understand that something like that teddy bear or something like that old pocket watch, that's just something we hang a memory on. That thing is not permanent.
Right.
That memory is in us. We just hang it on that particular object.
Right, right.
We've got to understand that things will go away. Whether it be the house that Grandma and Granddad used to live in, who gets torn down to build a mall or something like that. Your memory is still in you. It's still in your heart. It's still in your mind. We just hang those memories on certain things.
Right, right.
That's vitally important. Do you have anything that you cherish?
I do. I actually have. I have a few of the bowls and things like that that my grandmother used to cook in. I have some of her old cookbooks and things like that. My mom and my aunts have kept all her recipe cards, all those things that are in her handwriting.
Oh yes.
That that nobody could cook like she does, but they still they still try. I mean, they
I like the way you say that. They still try.
They loved it. Well, they love to keep that tradition alive.
Okay, good.
But for some of her baking secrets, she took with her to heaven. So we don't know.
It's like my wife's mom, when she baked or when she cooked, she didn't use measurements.
Yeah.
She eyeballed everything.
My mom does that.
And I'm like, how? So it took my wife 3 Thanksgivings to make the dressing perfect.
Of course.
Because she didn't have a real written down precise recipe.
And it's not something that you do on a regular basis either. So once a year, that's a different kind of thing. So
the first time she made it was like, oh, not enough sage. It's like, okay, but she continued to work on it and improve it. And I think she could probably make it in her sleep now.
Right.
But she's going to have to pass that on one day.
That's true.
Hopefully one of my daughters will be able to cook, but to somebody in the family to be able to keep making that.
Right.
So, that's a good thing. That's another way to keep those memories alive. You said earlier your grandmother made the best pound cake. So I'm sure every time you taste a pound cake, you're like, that's not Grandma's.
Right.
Or, wow, that's pretty good.
That's exactly.
Grandma would have loved this.
That comparison is always going to be there.
Always there. Always there. And one thing with memories, and we've kind of brushed on this every time we talk too, and I just like to bring it up because you never know what's going to trigger some sort of memory in you.
That's right.
Again, smell, taste, sound, anything that affects your senses can trigger a memory of
places.
Yes. And that's a tough thing. A lot of times with widows or widowers, they had a routine. Monday night they would go eat here. Tuesday night they'd eat at home. Wednesday night they'd go eat here. And it's always hard because of the memories that brings back for them to jump that hurdle and be able to go to that place. And, it's those kind of things that we try to help them through.
Right.
We try to make sure they realize that that's a positive step, and there's a way that they can remember their loved one without being as sad while they're doing it.
Right.
I say that's why we do that, and I basically we do grief support groups every Thursday night at 6 o'clock at the Caldwell and Cowan on Floyd Street. And we invite the community, anyone who might be facing any kind of struggle or grief in their life. It focuses a lot on grief through death or loss that way. But, grief is caused by so much more than that. Grief can be relationship changes. It can be financial woes. Anything that affects you majorly in your life can cause you grief. And, really, if people would learn to control or to work through their grief, life would be much more peaceful.
That's true.
We start being subjected to things that cause us grief as grade school kids. We're out on the playground, somebody calls us fat or ugly, and suddenly we're grieving. I do an exercise with our grievers where I ask them to write their name and address with their non-dominant hand. Okay? I'm right-handed. I can't write a lick with my left hand.
Right.
But during that process, I have them jot down words of what they're feeling. The words they write down are identical to words that we are told every week from grievers.
Wow.
The same, they feel lost. They feel out of control. Things like that are actually parts of grief.
Right.
So your mind acknowledges that grief even though it's only temporary. So it's very important that we learn to identify the things in our lives that's causing us grief and to be able to work through them.
Right.
But the big thing, remember your loved one. Remember. Birthdays, special occasions, anniversaries, don't let them go by and be problematic
Right.
or depressing or sad. Yes, there may be a tinge of sadness as you remember, but you want that remembrance to be joyful. You want to remember the life you've had with them, not the life you've lost with them.
Right.
And it's very important that we do that. In the studio today with Chris Queen, local author, director of communication at East Ridge Community Church. We're on 1430 AM WGFS in Covington. To call in to join the conversation, 678-212-0310, or you can Twitter us at Ray of Life Radio or Gmail us at rayofliferadio@gmail.com. We're going to go back to a song and we'll come back for our last segment.
So bright, starting the day, it's a radiant celebration of a life, your life. All creation is awaiting our becoming who He's making us. So rise up. This is the day the Lord has made. Take joy and give it all to Him. This is the day we walk by faith, redeemed and brave, 'cause today is the day the Lord's made. Set us free from our yesterdays, and our hearts are so surrendered to this life, your life. All creation is awaiting our becoming who is making us. So rise up. This is the day has made. I will take joy and give it all to Him. This is the day we walk by faith, redeemed and brave, 'cause today is the day the Lord's made. With sounds of victory, this day has already been set aside for greatness since the dawn of ages. He is our risen King, we are His offering. We fix our eyes on Jesus, we fix our eyes on Jesus, we fix our eyes on Jesus, we fix our eyes on Him. This is the day the Lord has made. I will take joy and give it all. Go and live it out.
Welcome back to Ray of Life Radio on WGFS AM 1430 in Covington, Georgia. In the studio with us today is Chris Queen, local author and director of communication at East Ridge Community Church. We've just been having a discussion today about his book, Faith, Football, and Flannery O'Connor, A Love Letter to the South, available on Amazon for your Kindle. If you love pages, I'm sorry. but it's a digital book, but it's well worth it. Invest in it and take a walk with Chris through the South and looking at different things that the South is made of. It's actually a very comprehensive tour, I must say.
Thanks.
I bet creating it was a blast.
It was a lot of fun.
Was it?
It was a short. I had a short window of time to get it done, but it was a lot of fun to
That's
do.
good. It takes you from, I guess, an hour north of Covington all the way to Disney World. So if you've ever made that journey in a car, you've probably passed some of the stuff that Chris talks about in his book. And it's just a nice, enlightening look at Southern culture. And I think I can't urge you enough to get it. I've got my copy. I'm reading through it. So, again, Football, Faith, and Flannery O'Connor, A Love Letter to the South on Amazon. We've been talking today about remembering our loved ones, and I got a text just a moment ago that reminded me. I do this often, and it's kind of become second nature to me, but you hear it on other radio stations called, the drive-through difference or something like that, but we call it paying it forward.
Right.
You may be sitting in the drive-through, you're getting whatever you get, and you just decide to give the cashier a little extra money and say, hey, I'm paying for that person behind me, and tell them, hey, God bless you, or you do it in memory of your loved one. Right. To be able to do that. The other day I went through and I gave the cashier some extra cash, and I said, pay for however many that'll pay for.
Right.
And I've been on the receiving end of that, and I know how that feels. And if you're able to bless someone else while remembering your loved one, that's all we can ask for.
And it's something that the person who is the recipient of that will never forget.
Exactly.
That's one of the cool things about it.
Exactly. And the thing is, if you drive off, they never know who did it.
That's true.
They might see a car similar to that. I wonder if that's the person, But we don't do it for recognition.
Right.
We do it simply to remember our loved one and to just pay a blessing forward.
Right.
And hope that we brighten their day, and maybe they'll pass it forward someday and brighten somebody else's day. But those are all ways that we can do this.
Right.
We've talked about all sorts of different things today: balloon releases, paper lantern releases, and even keepsakes and creating teddy bears out of clothing. But the big thing here that I want to get across today before we go is remember your loved one. You can never remember them enough, because generations to come need to know about their life.
That's true.
Generations to come need to know who that person was. And that's the way we keep our heritage alive. Without some of the stories of our loved ones, our genealogy would be incomplete. So we've got to do that, and it helps us through our grief as well. It helps with that processing, and that's vitally important. We'll talk more in the future about how grief kind of layers on top of itself and creates this onion that you're really having to peel through to get to the source, that first loss. But if you don't process your losses, they will build up, and you will eventually begin making yourself sick. You can make yourself physically sick. You can make yourself mentally sick. So it's important that you try to work through each loss as it arrives and just go from there. We've met people who have had loss after loss after loss piled on top of them. And in the back of our minds, we're going, how in the world? But see, the thing is, and this is an important takeaway from today, is you can't do it on your own.
Right.
I'm not saying you need a buddy. I'm saying your buddy needs to be Christ. And you need to walk with him. You need to draw strength from him, because it's only with his hand underneath you that you're going to be able to walk through a lot of this. One loss is bad enough. When you have 2, 3, or 4 piled on top of it, then you really need him.
Right.
And that's one of the things I love about being on WGFS AM 1430 in Covington, is the fact that I can openly talk about my relationship with Christ. We can talk about how Christ helps you through this grief process. And again, we have grief meetings every Thursday at 6 o'clock at Caldwell & Cowan on Floyd Street. Caldwell & Cowan is our sponsor for this show. I want to thank them again for all that they do. I want to thank Chris for being in studio with us today, and all the people that are listening live on the radio and live on YouTube. We stream live on YouTube every week. So join us back here next Friday at noon, and we're going to go out with one last song and turn things back over to the radio station. Y'all have a great week.